Hi everyone, this is GIAN JAMILA and my topic is Eminent Domain.
Republic Act Number 8974, or an act to facilitate the acquisition of right or of way, site or location for national government infrastructure projects and for other purposes. So our first one is Section 1, which is Declaration of Policy. So in declaration policy, this is Article 3, Section 9 of the Constitution, and it states that the private property shall not be taken for public use without just compensation. So toward this end, the state shall ensure that the owner of real property acquired for national government infrastructure projects are promptly paid just compensation. Okay. Number 2, the national government projects. And the term national government project, it should refer to the all national government infrastructure, engineering works, and services contracts, including the Republic Act Number 6957 as amended by the Republic Act Number 7718, or otherwise known as the Build, Operate, and Transfer Law, and other related necessary activities such as acquisition, supply, and or installation of equipment and materials, implementation, construction, completion, operation, maintenance, improvement, repair, and rehabilitation, regardless of the source of funding. Section 3, Modes of accounting real property. So, in Section 3, the government may acquire real property. So, means it is needed as the right of way, site or location for any national government infrastructure project through donation, negotiable sale, expropriation, or in any other mode of acquisition as provided by the law. And for Section 4, for the Section 4 guidelines for expropriation. Guidelines for expropriation proceedings. So that means that whenever it is necessary to acquire real property for the right way or location for any government infrastructure project through expropriation, the appropriate implementing agency shall initiate the expropriation proceedings before the proper court under the following guidelines. So we have number 1 is the upon the filing of the complaint and after due notice to the defendant, the implementing agency shall pay the owner of the property the amount of equivalent to the sum of 100%. Okay. And it is of the value of the property based on the current relevant zonal valuation of the Bureau of Internal Revenue or BIR. And the second is the value of the value of the improvements and or structure as determined by the as determined under the Section 7 hereof in provinces, cities, municipalities, and other areas where there is no zonal valuation, the BIR is hereby mandated with a period of 60 days from the date of the expropriation case to come up with a zonal valuation for said area. And in case the completion of a government infrastructure project is of utmost urgency and importance, and there is no existing valuation of the area concerned, the implementing agency shall immediately pay the owner of the property. It's pre-offered or proffered value taking into consideration the standard prescribed in Section 5. Okay, and upon compliance with the guidelines above mentioned, okay, so the court shall immediately issue to the implementing agency an order to take possession of the property and also to start the implementation of each project. So before the court can issue a writ of possession, the implementing agencies shall present to the court certificate of availability of funds from the proper official concerned. That means that in the event that the owner of the property contests the implementing agency proffered value, and then the court shall determine the just compensation to be paid by the owner within 60 days, or to be paid the owner within 60 days. From executory, the implementing agency shall pay the owner the difference between the amount that is already paid, okay, and just the compensation that is determined by. So the next one is the Section 5, which is the standard for the assessment of the value of the land subject of expropriation proceedings or negotiated sale. So in order to facilitate the determination of just compensation, the court may consider, among other, that is well-established factors. So the following relevant standards is the classification and use for which the property is suited. The next one is the developmental cost for improving the land. The next is the value declared by the owners. Next is the current selling price of the lands in the vicinity. Next is the reasonable disturbance compensation for the removal and demolition of certain improvements on the land, and for the value of improvements thereon. And for the next one is this size, shape, or location, tax, or declaration and zonal valuation of them. So next is the price of the land as manifested in the ocular findings, oral as well as documentary evidence presented, and such facts and events as to enable to affected property owners to have sufficient funds to acquire similarly situated lands of approximate areas as those required from them by the government, and thereby rehabilitate themselves as early as possible. Okay, so the next one is the Section 6, which is the guidelines for negotiated sales. So this should implementing agency and the owner of the property agree on a negotiated sales. Okay, so for the acquisition of right of way, site or location for any government infrastructure project, the standards prescribed under Section 5 hereof shall be used to determine the fair market value of the property, subject to review and approval by the head of the agency or department concerned. So the next is Section 7. Valuation of improvements and structures, or the Department of Public Works and Highways and other implementing agencies concerned, in accordance with the local government units concerned in the acquisition of right-way, the site or location for any national government infrastructure project are hereby mandated to adopt within 60 days upon approval of this act. So, the necessary implementing rules and regulations for the equitable valuation. So, of the improvements and structures on the lands to be expropriated. The next one is the Section 8, Ecological and Environmental Concerns. So, in any cases involving the acquisition of right-of-way, site or location for any national government infrastructure project, so the implementing agency shall take into account the ecological environmental impact of the project before any national government project could be undertaken. So the agency shall consider environmental laws, lands use to ordinance, and all the pertinent provision of the Republic Act 7160, as amended, otherwise known as the Local Government Code of 1991. So the next section is 9. So the squatter relocation. So for this one, the government through the National Housing Authority, in coordination with the local government units and implementing agency concerned, shall establish a developed squatter relocation sites, including the provision of adequate utilities and service in anticipation of squatters that have to be removed from the right-way or sites of future infrastructure project. So whenever applicable, the concerned local government of the local government units, it shall provide and administer the relocation sites in any case that the appropriated land is occupied by the squatters. So the court should issue the necessary writ of demolition for the purposes of dismantling any of all structures found within the subject or the subject property. So the implementing agency should or shall take into action and observe diligently the procedure is provided for Section 28 and 29 of the Republic Act number 7279. Okay, so otherwise known as the Urban Development and Housing Act of 1992. Funds for the relocation site shall come from appropriation from the purpose and other the General Appropriation Act, as well as from the appropriate infrastructure project funds of the implementing agency concerned. So the next one is the Section 10. It is the appropriation for acquisition of right or way, site or location for any national government infrastructure project in advance of project implementation. So for this one, it says that the government will or shall provide an adequate appropriation that will allow the concerned implementing agencies to acquire the required right-of-way, site or location for any national government infrastructure projects. So for the Section 11, this is the sanctions. Violations of any provision of this act shall subject the government official or employee concerned to appropriate administrative, civil, and or criminal sanction, including suspension, and dismissal from the government, serving, and forfeiture of benefits. Okay, so rules and regulations. This is from section 12. So in here, a committee composed of the Public Secretary of the Department of Public Works and Highways as chairpersons, and the Secretarians of Department of Transportation and Communication. So the Department of Energy and the Department of Justice and the President of the Leagues of Province, Cities, and Municipalities as members shall prepare the necessary rules and regulations for the proper implementation of this activity within 60 days from its approval. So the next one is section 13. So we're almost done. So for section 13, separably clause. If any a provision of this act is declared unconstitutional or invalid, other parts of provision hereof not affected shall continue to be in full force and effect. So section 14, repealing clause. So all laws, decrees, orders, rules, regulations, or parts therefore inconsistent with this act, and repealed or amended accordingly. Okay, and number 15, effectively clause. This act shall take effect 15 days following its publication in at least 2 weeks, or 2 newspaper, not 2 weeks, but 2 newspaper of general circulation. Okay, so the eminent domain here in the Philippines, domain authority, it means that the president shall decide when it's required or desirable to exercise the power of eminent domain on behalf of the national government, and shall direct the Solicitor General to expropriation proceedings in appropriate court whenever he deems the action advisable, and also the power of the government to take property and convert into public use. The 15th amendment, it provides that the government may only exercise this power if they provide just compensation to the property owners. So as I've said earlier, this is in the section 1 of Republic Act 8974. So if you were asking if the government can take your land, then the answer is yes. The government may acquire real property, but it is necessary as right of way, venue or place for every national government infrastructure plan donation, negotiated sales, expropriation, or any legal means. This is also in the Republic Act 8974. So there are traditional examples of public uses for which the government may exercise its power of eminent domain. This includes such things as schools, roads, libraries, police station, and fire station, and also similar public uses. Okay, take note, however, that the term is public use as interpreted very broadly by the courts. So the last question, if you are wondering if can the government can take your property without compensation, so the states under police power cannot in any manner actually take and appropriate property for public use without compensation. Again, without compensation. For such action is repugnant to the constitutional guarantee that where the private property is appropriated for public use, the owner shall receive reasonable compensation. So again, it will fall back into the section 1 or it will fall back again into the Republic Act 8974. And that's all for today, the tackle about eminent domain. I hope that you've learned something from this, and thank you for listening.